Hey, it's Adam Grant from Work Life, a podcast from TED. This episode is brought to you by Freshworks. Freshworks believes that complexity is the enemy of efficiency. So stop wrestling with bloated, expensive service software that takes forever to implement an update, where ROI is someday, not today. You've been overcharged and underserved for way too long. Uncomplicate with Fresh Service for IT and Fresh Desk for customer support. And with Freshworks AI-assisted service software, you'll work smarter, not harder. Freshworks uncomplicates. Learn more at freshworks.com.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday 7.
I'm Kira Revens in for Jamie East this week, and on today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we find out what's on the menu for this year's Earthshot prize, get the latest on a breakthrough in IVF, and hear some extraordinary bird calls from Hong Kong. Plus, Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's resident tech guru, explains what's going on in the AI wars and why your local postman has turned green. If you're enjoying our episode, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 in association with Metro. Before we get started, though, it was on this day 1955 that the first solar power card was publicly demonstrated. It was just 15 inches long and built by William G. Cobb from General Motors and was first exhibited at an event called Powerama in Chicago, which had over 2.5 million visitors. This week has seen the Earthshot Prize, Prince William's climate change initiative, ramp things up as they prepare for this year's event in Rio. The prize sees 5 winners from across the world given £1 million each to help develop their business or initiative that tackles climate change. Last year's event was held in Cape Town, South Africa, and saw awards for a conservation project on Kazakhstan's Golden Steppe, alongside projects for cleaning the oceans and air, and a project intended to help rural farmers using solar power cold storage. This year's event has been timed to coincide with the UN's Global Climate Summit COP30, and longtime environmental campaigner, former US Vice President Al Gore, was sounding optimistic about making progress at this year's event.
I think we're very close to that positive tipping point where the climate is concerned, and this dramatic progress is a sure sign of it. 93% of all the new electricity generation last year worldwide was renewable. That's incredible. The electric vehicles are really catching on, and in some countries are just really replacing the internal combustion engines. I'm optimistic, very encouraged, but I want to make sure that we move faster still because the emissions are still going up. We have to bend that curve down.
15 different projects are nominated for the Earthshot Prize across different categories, and one of last year's winner, Desmond Alugnoa, CEO of the GAYO recycling project in Ghana, says it can make a real difference.
We have massive numbers of young people from different universities and also in the communities that are really supporting the campaign. So it's quite easy to broker knowledge in the various communities when you have the numbers, right? And then with brokering those knowledges and also having the authority behind you, because we signed this memorandum of understanding with the government, it helps to have the buy-in of the community members, help to have the buy-in of restaurants and operators of business entities that are really generating waste.
One of last year's finalists was a company called Ferment'Up, who have developed an intriguing and slightly disgusting sounding process. They take commercial food processing waste and, using a dry fermentation process, turn it into sustainable ingredients. That includes things like spent grains from breweries and even tomato skins or apple peels, which they transform into nutrient-rich powders they can use to create tomato concentrate or even cereals. Ninna Granucci is the co-founder, and she says her product has multiple benefits.
We have 2 layers, let's say, in terms of impact. The first one is that we are using byproducts from the food industry to avoid them being wasted, so the skins and seeds of grape and fava beans as well. And we are fermenting them to change the taste, so we avoid waste at this step. And then we are replacing cocoa and chocolate in a few applications that also cocoa has a big footprint. So the idea is really to have a big impact in terms of the food that you eat every day, like your cookies and the spread that you use.
The Earthshot Prize has backing from big names including David Beckham, Kate Blanchett and even former Brazilian footballer Cafu, but it's also focused on a new generation of young climate leaders. Tasha and Natalie spoke about their commitment to change and the importance of making a difference for a younger generation.
Young people bring a different dynamic to the world and we bring a new perspective.
It's not just that we disproportionately face the impacts of climate change, but it's also that we have the solutions if we were given that space, if we were given that funding, if we were given those resources. And that's why I'm grateful for the Earthshot Prize. We've been able to take up space in places we wouldn't usually be able to talk to different companies, philanthropies, organizations, their CEOs that we probably wouldn't get a reply from.
Yeah.
And we have that backing.
This Week in Tech has seen AI dominate the headlines once again as chip maker Nvidia announced huge sales to the tech giants, suggesting that there's no end in sight to the AI boom as yet. But it's not all rosy in the AI garden, so it's time to check in with our Mr. Green Fingers when it comes to all things tech. And it's the Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. So, Will, the AI bandwagon is still rolling.
It certainly is, and one survey from the PR company B Broadcast this week ran the numbers and found there's been over 80,000 mentions of AI on UK TV and radio since the start of the year alone, and that around 50% of those were handling the story negatively. So while there's plenty going on, it seems there's much to do in changing public opinion about artificial intelligence. Perhaps the biggest challenge here is that AI is now in everything, from that tool to make civil servants more efficient, to the stuff that doctors are using to advance cancer diagnosis, and then there's the tech that once again stepped in this week to make the dead voice of John Lennon sound less like a robot on a handful of songs in this new remastered Beatles anthology. AI is literally everywhere.
One man who doesn't seem particularly happy is our old friend Elon Musk. Who's he taking to court?
It's been another vintage week for Musk on his social platform X. I'm using the word vintage because his fans love him and others would question what the hell is going on. Once again, he's attempted to interfere with UK politics, suggested his business could easily replace Microsoft with AI, and posted a load of awful memes. But perhaps the biggest surprise this week is his lawsuit against Apple and OpenAI that accuses them of an anti-competitive scheme, allowing them to maintain monopolies in the smartphone and AI chatbot market.
Does he have a point?
It claims that Apple deliberately demotes what they call a super app. Now, in this case, X are of course referring to their own app as a super app and prioritises OpenAI because ChatGPT is used in Apple Intelligence, and that's what operates on the iPhone and other Apple devices right now. Musk and his businesses have an extensive track record of firing out claims like this that never make it to court, but cause disruption and chaos, well, because lawyers have to lawyer and it costs loads of money, time and attention. I'm sure that some lawyer would stand up and tell you he's got an absolutely cast iron case. But for me, if there wasn't clear proof that other apps have managed to succeed after Apple and OpenAI teamed up, he would have a better chance of winning. And given a variety of well-documented concerns around X and its AI products, including Grok, the fact it still totally ignores intellectual property rights, and has occasionally displayed far-right tendencies, including referring to itself as Mecha Hitler, Apple are probably on somewhat safer ground here. But time will tell.
There's a new poll this week on AI and it suggests that people are really worried, right?
A new poll by the Trades Union Congress says that half of adults in the UK are concerned about the impact of AI on their jobs, as union leaders call the government to change the country's approach to this new tech. They surveyed around 2,600 workers and 51% said they were concerned, and in the 25 to 34-year-old age group, it was higher at 62%.
Are they right to say they're worried?
When you consider both the current and previous governments had claimed AI would be a co-pilot and assistant to the workforce, you've now got companies like BT, Amazon and Microsoft, big employers here in the UK, publicly stating that advances in AI are likely to lead to them cutting jobs here. You've even got the government proudly proclaiming that AI has slashed thousands of human hours off of projects like major planning consultations, and you begin to wonder where us humans fit in.
Meanwhile, we're all still stuck to our smartphones 24/7, but one town in Japan is trying to break the habit. What are they doing, Will?
Toyoke in Japan is trying to pass a rule that limits smartphone use to just 2 hours a day in an attempt to tackle what local leaders say is rising online addiction and sleep deprivation. Now, lots of locals are up in arms over this, rejecting efforts of their local mayor to say what they can and can't do. And importantly, even if this becomes law, it's in fact more guidance, as they couldn't fine locals. But plenty of eyes will be on what happens in this area and what its population of 70,000 people make of these attempts to try and control rising smartphone use.
And finally, in a world of AI, what innovation are the Royal Mail bringing to the humble postbox?
Royal Mail are replacing 3,000 postboxes in the UK, and they're replacing existing ones with a new model which includes the solar panels, barcode scanner and a special door lower down on the box, which means you'll have more space to load bigger parcels and items into the local postbox rather than trundle down to the post office, and the solar panels make this all possible. This is a clever little tweak to make postboxes more useful, and we've had them for 175 years already, but the reality is many of us aren't sending letters anymore, but do dabble in a little bit of online selling or need to return stuff we bought online. And the fantastic thing for Royal Mail is this has generated a ton of valuable publicity to let people know that it's still here for business.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, in association with Metro, farmers struggle with the heat waves and a warning from cancer charities. There was positive news this week on prostate cancer with a new study from University College London, which suggests that a simple genomic test could make a big difference in how individual patients are treated. Each year in the UK, there are over 55,000 cases of prostate cancer diagnosed, and approximately 12,000 men die from the disease each year, making it the second most lethal cancer for men. Early detection makes a big difference, and the new prostate genomic classifier test, which was reviewed in the study, suggests that identifying different profiles for tumours will make it easier to identify patients that will benefit from chemotherapy. Amy Rylance is the Assistant Director of Health Improvement at Prostate Cancer UK, and she says the critical thing is for men to come forward and be tested regularly to catch it early.
We need men to understand their risk for prostate cancer. Prostate Cancer UK have developed an online risk checker. You can just Google risk checker. It will ask you a couple of quick questions about your age, your family history of the disease and your ethnicity, because black men have double the risk of prostate cancer. It will then help you to understand if you're at risk, but crucially, if you are at risk, what you can do about it. Because the NHS isn't going to step in. You're not going to get an invite from your GP. It is on you to take action.
Former Sky News presenter Dermot Murnaghan has been diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. He's 67 years old and has now had a course of chemotherapy, but he says the lesson has to be get yourself tested sooner.
Most men who age have an enlarged prostate of some kind. In many, many cases, it is not going to be a threat to their life. Something else, in the end, may probably get them. So I understand that, but the fact is that the tests are getting more accurate. I'm not a professional here, I only know from my end of it, but they are getting more accurate. They might cost a little bit more money, but think of the money you save. If I've been caught, as in so many other cancers, if you're diagnosed much, much earlier, then of course you save money much further down the line.
As we head into harvest season, the nation's farmers are deeply worried. We've heard from celebrity farmer Jeremy Clarkson that the harvest looks pretty grim at Diddley Squat Farm, and he's not alone in worrying about the impact that 4 heat waves this summer will have on the nation's harvest. The Met Office says 2025 saw the driest spring in 100 years and the driest first half of the year since 1929, and that, when the numbers are finally added up, summer 2025 is likely to be the warmest since records began. Luke Ablitt is a potato farmer in Peterborough, and he says the fact that last year also saw a dry summer hasn't made things any easier.
The weather seems to be getting more crazy and a little bit more erratic. It's getting drier and wetter to both ends of the extreme. So we've had 2 real dry years on the bounce now. If you can remember, the year before that and the year before that as well was pretty dry as well. So it is becoming a bit more of a trend. So we need to start looking at different methods and investing in stuff that we can start combating this weather and, making it more sustainable for ourselves.
David Barton runs a beef farm in the Cotswolds with 200 head of cattle, but he says there's basically no grazing for his herd after a brutally hot summer. As a result, he's had to start using winter feed in the summer.
There is absolutely nothing here to graze for my cows. It looks dead. It will come back again, but you can see it is just dust. It is dead. There is nothing for them to pick at. Sometimes in a dry year, we might feed cattle in August, and I usually carry stocks for that. But we would have made good forage stocks earlier in the year. May and June, we grow a lot of grass. And because we didn't have that opportunity this year, it's impossible to catch up. But now we're heading towards September, we won't be able to make conserved forage in the way of silage or hay this year now.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, in association with Metro, we hear about a ban on bottom trawling and meet some talented bird impressionists.
Right after this.
Wayfair's Labor Day clearance is here. Right now, score up to 70% off everything home, plus fast shipping on everything right to your door. Shop now through September 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Welcome back.
Earlier this summer, the UN hosted an oceans conference in Nice dedicated to helping protect the world's oceans and reduce environmental impact from mankind's activities. One of the practices that is to be banned is what known as bottom trawling. That's the highly destructive practice of basically rolling heavy nets along the ocean floor, which can damage the environment and destroy things like coral reefs. It's also estimated that about 60% of what is caught using the bottom trawling method is thrown back dead. Environment Secretary Steve Reid has agreed to ban bottom trawling across about half of British fishing areas, but he's facing pushback from local fishermen. Elspeth McDonald is CEO of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation, and she says there's no need for a full ban.
It's not that the fishing industry is going and trawling over pristine habitat on a daily basis. That's not how it works. We fish in the same areas. These areas have been trawled for years. They continue to produce fish. So I think what's important with conservation is, for example, how you might zone these marine protected areas. So you identify the areas that are in most need of protection. You do prohibit bottom trawling from the parts of them that are most in need of protection, but allow sustainable use in other parts. And I think that's the direction that we've been trying to take forward with the Scottish Government here in Scotland.
New statistics released this week show that fertility rates in England and Wales have fallen for the third year in a row. The average number of live children a woman can expect to have now stands at 1.4, which is down from 1.42 in 2023 and is the lowest number since the Office for National Statistics first started to collect data in 1938. The drop in fertility rates came despite a small increase in live births, and that's because of an overall growth in the population. Interestingly, there was also a 40% increase in the number of babies born to dads who were over 60 years of age. Professor Bassel is a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist and the Associate Professor of Reproductive Medicine at Anglia Ruskin University. He says society needs to make it easier for career women to find the space to consider having children.
What I think is definitely required more is more advocacy. So, for example, in my discipline in medicine, it used to be, crazy talk for a female surgeon to take time off work to go have children, and it used to be very difficult. But now we're seeing more flexibility offered for doctors in training and senior doctors who want to go on maternity leave, and with more support in terms of phased return or flexible working hours. So we need to see more of this action and support to aid women in their careers who want to continue in their career progression, to have their family life and establish and look after their children while without having a negative impact into their working careers.
With fertility rates dropping, there was some good news this week for those looking to conceive using IVF. New genetic testing, which would ensure that embryos have the correct number of chromosomes before they are implanted in the womb, could significantly improve the chances of success, particularly for women over 35. The results came from a trial of 100 women at King's College London's Fertility Centre, and it showed a significant difference in live birth rates up to 72%. Dr. Hippocrates Saris is a director at King's Fertility, and he says it should improve the odds of successful cell implantation and reduce the number of procedures needed.
Of course, what genetic testing does not do, it does not increase the number of normal embryos. Of course, that is something that the body creates. But what it can do potentially is to discriminate between those that will never work, will miscarry, and those that will lead to healthy pregnancies. The outcomes are not necessarily just having a healthy pregnancy, but also avoiding miscarriages and the time it takes you to get to that pregnancy. Now, the NHS has not been funding genetic testing, neither has NICE, although it's important to say that the NICE guidelines are quite old now and they are being re-looked at. And it's exactly this sort of tests that are required and these experiments and these trials to see if there is a place for these genetic tests, which can have a cost, but also can have some potential side effects as well and negative effects.
You might be forgiven for thinking that is the sound of real-life birds, but you'd be wrong. Instead, it's a unique event which was hosted this week by the Hong Kong Birdwatching Society, who held their first ever bird call contest, which invited people to give their best bird impressions live on stage. There are a number of endangered bird species in Hong Kong, including the brownfish owl and the Asian barred owlet, and the intention is to raise awareness and think about what they can do to assist with conservation efforts in the city. Paul Leader is an ecologist and ornithologist, and he thinks it could be a great way to get people to engage more with endangered species.
These people are listening to birds in the urban area, so hopefully that will spread their interest, and maybe they'll go to some of the places in the new territories that are amazing for birds, some of the woodland areas or the wetlands. So everyone starts somewhere, so I'm just thrilled to hear that this is the first time that some of them have been interested and thinking about birds. That's a great start.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.